Hey everyone! Once again, it's spoopy season. I will admit, this video is coming out a bit rushed, but I really wanted to get it out before Halloween, and I enjoyed this the last time. This time, we have 4 stalker stories from the interwebs. And also, I just wanted to say thanks for the new subs, even in my absence. It's been a long time, and it's great to be back. So, sit back, munch a lunch on some popcorn, not candy corn, you sickos, and enjoy.
Number 1.
Back in high school, there was this girl named Caitlin. She was very gothic looking, but was satanic in a way that's extreme. I never minded different people and would be nice to her as I would with anyone else, but that quickly grew into a crush on me. She would leave her classes early to be standing at mine when I got out. She would send me love letters, the whole 9 yards. About 2 weeks in, I told her I wasn't interested in dating. Those love letters became the creepy type. If I can't have you, no one will. The final straw was when one of them detailed a ritual killing of me, using a dagger and horrific shit about my blood coating her body. The actual scary part of it was the list of drugs she would give me before and during to keep me hard so that I could be inside her as I died. The drugs would have worked. The literal knowledge is what scared me. If you have the time to research drugs for that purpose, you have the time to put it into action. My parents called the police and she was removed from the school and sent away. She came back a few years later wearing like Catholic school type clothes, but quickly went back to her old ways. I've ran into her twice in public and she gives me chills up my spine. And even better, my girlfriend is an acquaintance of hers, although she has distanced herself after I shared of this happening.
Number 2.
Mine was actually an ex-boyfriend. The stalking started after the breakup, but the entire relationship was fucked. We had been friends for a few years when we started dating my junior year of high school. After we started dating, he completely became a different person. Or maybe he just never let the true him shine through. He'd always grab my phone, look through my text messages and call logs. He wanted to be together all the time, no matter what. Even if I was studying. He had already graduated high school and worked full time. I'd have random crazy girls calling me, telling me how they were gonna beat me up or how they were going to fuck my man. He'd be insanely jealous. And when we'd fight, he'd get so mad he'd throw his phone across the room or across the street. Good old Nokia's, always unbreakable. The whole relationship was crazy, and I tried to end it at least 6 to 7 times over the year and a half span of it all. Every time we'd break up, he'd go batshit crazy and do the whole I'm gonna kill myself bit. He'd call and call and call and want to talk and talk and talk. Until eventually I would say, if I agree and get back together with you, will you back off? Not healthy, I know. But I had shit to do. Sports, school, a job, etc. And I didn't have time to deal with it. It was just easier to agree to get back together. One time I broke up with him, he told me that he had been having headaches, so he went to the doctor that day and found out he had a brain aneurysm and had 8 months to live. Now, we had 2 friends die in car accidents exactly 1 year apart, so I knew how fleeting life was. And I got back together with him just because I didn't know what else to do. But wouldn't you know it, that those 8 months came and without a single trip back to the doctor for his brain aneurysm. So, here's where shit gets crazy. My senior year, I had no idea how to get out of this relationship. So I started looking into out of state colleges, figuring there was no way he'd follow me. If I put up with the crazy until that summer, I'd be off to the magical world of college and no crazy BF. He must have seen the brochure from the college I was interested in because he wanted to go to that college. He even went as far as to taking the SATs. I knew my plan wasn't going to work. He would follow me wherever I went. So what did I do? I joined the fucking army. That'll show him. Try following me there, right? Next thing I know, he's meeting with my fucking recruiter. Of course, the likelihood of him getting stationed where I was at was very slim. But, I didn't know that at the time. I was young and I was scared. I realized the army was a dumb idea and wrote a letter to the commissioner? Whoever the head honcho is of the recruitments. And I explained that I had lied on my physical, even though that's what the recruiters tell you what to do. And I sent a copy to my medical records and was let out shortly after that. I don't remember how it happened, but we broke up. I changed my phone number and cut off connection with all of our shared friends. Yay! The end of crazy! Free at last! Or so I thought. For the next few months after the breakup, until I left for college, he'd randomly show up where I was. The movie theater, the tennis courts, restaurants that we never went to before. He'd want to talk, and I'd just say I had to leave immediately. But he'd get furious if he saw me with another guy, no matter who the guy was. It could have been my cousin, and he would have flipped his shit. I have no idea how he knew where I was going. Once I left for college, 90 minutes away, I thought it would be over. I heard he had come up to my college a few times to see other friends, but I'd stay in the dorm those nights, afraid that I would see him if I went out. During my freshman year of college, one of our close friends from that same group killed himself, and I came home to attend the funeral. My ex was pretty distraught since this was his third friend of ours to die in 3 years. I had no choice to be nice to him. I mean, it was a funeral for our good friend. After the funeral, everybody was going to a friend's house just to spend time together. I did not want to go, but my friends convinced me. While at the house, my ex starts talking to me. I act polite, but try to avoid him. That doesn't work. He's right next to me all night, trying to kiss me, putting his arm around me, whatever he could get. Somehow, this translates into him thinking we're back together. Fuck my life. I tell him I'm leaving. He freaks out. He gets my number somehow from someone at the party. He starts texting and calling and texting and calling all the time. This continued for 5 years. 5 years. I moved out of state now, and I don't talk to anyone from my hometown anymore. And the phone calls have finally stopped. I still get weird whenever I venture back into my hometown, and I'm constantly surveying the area, scared that I'm going to see him again. And if I happen to be with my significant other, I won't even venture into any part of the city that I think there's a chance he could be in.
Number 3.
Mine isn't special, but here all the same. A few years ago, my anxiety was high. I was already at a point in my life where I thought I was a little out of it. But that was amplified by a lot when I kept repeatedly hearing noises outside my window, like every single night. It just wouldn't stop. I would finally get so freaked out I'd go wake up my parents and get them to look outside, but they never found anything. I started to think I was crazy, or just subconsciously seeking attention. One morning, my grandfather discovered one of our lawn chairs beneath our bathroom window. It's pretty high up and the bottom pane is fogged, so I'm not sure the chair even helped, but it was left there regardless. The next night, I heard sounds again. Nothing. The night after, however, we checked outside and discovered that something that made my stomach churn. A small stepladder was sitting directly outside of my window, back just enough to allow someone to sit on it but still see. On my windowsill was a bag of now cold McDonald's, which was just up the street from me. Most of the food was still in there, but still, some fucker had been watching me, doing absolutely nothing of interest in my room without me knowing for I don't know how fucking long. The cops were called, nothing happened. I felt crazier than ever. No one was to be found, but at least we had some evidence that someone that shouldn't be hovering around our house was at my window, watching me intently through the blinds, in a space between two curtains. Heard noises again the next night. Ran outside. Nothing. Earlier in the night, I'd sewn my curtains together, which hopefully made it harder to see in. Apparently it did, because now the fucker had taken on to climbing on top of our air conditioning unit. From there, climbing onto our garbage can, then standing on that, he could now see above where the drapes went. The handprints and shoe prints were left on the lid to prove it. I should also mention that there were now holes in my screen, and I heard these holes being created. He took a stick and sharpened it somehow. We found it outside my window and was trying to stealthily break away my screen bit by bit. The hole is still there. The next night, I distinctly heard the gravel near my window crunch. There was simply no mistaking that sound. As stealthily as I could, I let out a small moan he surely heard and rolled just out of view, as if I were sleeping, then pressed myself against the wall out of view of the window. Very quietly opened my door and crept down the hall. My heart was pounding. Normally I knock on my parents' door, but I knew the slightest sound would make the bastard bolt, so I quietly opened their door and snuck in, then informed them that there he was without a single doubt. There was someone outside my window. They didn't mind the intrusion, and got up, got dressed, and formulated a plan, and crept to the back door. I ran to the bathroom to stand on the edge of our tub and peek out the window just as the back door was thrown open by my parents, and then ran outside like morons. And sure enough, they saw him. They started screaming as the man left off at the Herbie and bolted down the driveway, which was what I was looking at. They screamed all sorts of horrible things at the top of our lungs. "You sick motherfucker, I'm gonna fucking kill you," from my dad. "You fucking freak," from my mom. He ended up escaping across the street and hiding in the house adjacent to us. The balls on this bastard. He kept peeking out at us as we all stood outside, but we wanted to leave him there so the cops could finally nab him. They were called, they came, and they searched, but they never found him. Bastard must have hopped the fence or some shit. Still to this day, I hear sounds outside my window, even in the dead of winter, but he's never out there. He might have just been a peeper, but targeted me specifically for months until he was almost caught. What really pisses me off is that once he lost interest in me because it was too unsafe, he then moved onto another house down the street. 2 little girls. He actually managed to get in through their window, and their dad caught him, just standing in the middle of the room, watching them sleeping. I won't say what he was doing, but I still don't think he was caught even then. All I know is that it could have been way worse, but it still messed me up. I trust the men in my neighborhood even less now. The men around here stare very blatantly. I've even been chased home by one. I've had a guy try to jerk me into his car when I was passing him, telling him no, I didn't need a ride and to leave me alone. All these years later, I still hear shit outside my window and freak out. It's fucked up. I turn out my lights entirely to exercise. I do my best to avoid the windows when I undressed. It just scarred me, even though it wasn't a huge deal.
Number 4.
She was new at the school, and I had a bit of a crush on her. I had made friends with pretty much all the girls and didn't see any of them romantically.
So I was kind of excited to meet someone whom I wasn't already friends with. I ask her out to a local museum for a date after school, and she says yes. Day of the date, she comes in and says she can't go because she has a headache. I believe it at the time and offer to reschedule. She declines, saying something along the lines of getting them often. I'm upset about it, but move on. Prom comes around and I stag for the second year in a row. Hard to get a date when you're everyone's friend. And she shows up with one of the guys. Knew him in passing, but if our total conversation time totaled more than 30 minutes, I would be amazed. I had no opinion on the guy. By the end of prom, though, she's already ditched him and is dancing with me instead. High school relationships being high school relationships, we are now a thing. We date for a couple of months. First kiss, cuddling, that sort of thing. No sex or anything that would count as foreplay. Just wholesome stuff. It was honestly nice after my past experiences. We go to an amusement park for my birthday, day before to be precise, along with some friends. She's a little more subdued than normal, but I think I remember her blaming it on a headache. They were actually quite common for her, I discovered over the months. However, the next day, she breaks up with me via text message. I'm going to college in the fall at this point, and she's going into her senior year of high school. So I decided that, while that was a shitty way to break it off, she was right, and I responded as such. Then, shit gets real. For a little more context, she had a rough childhood, to say the least. She lost both of her parents due to a drug overdose. Her father while he was in recovery. She was adopted by her aunt and uncle. She was also violently raped when she was younger, around 14 when she told me. This is why she panicked the first time I asked her out. The shit stain even carved the word whore into both of her inner thighs. At the time, she said she didn't want to prosecute and deal with all that shit. But the cops were involved, photos, DNA, the works. They had the guy dead to rights if they ever prosecuted him. In hindsight, I don't think that would have been her decision to make, being a minor. I don't know all the details, but my gut tells me it was her uncle or a relative. But I have no evidence to back that up. All I know is that he was still somewhere in her life. After the breakup, she immediately starts calling me. It was all a test. She didn't want to actually break up with me. I decide that I don't want to play that kind of game, and dating her is not the best thing for either of us. She wasn't really ready to date anyone, and I was not able to support her. So I stick with the, no, we are broken up. I start getting endless text messages about our future children, including grandkids. Phone calls where she was only crying, threats of her killing herself, etc. I change my number and get some peace for a couple of weeks. Until I get texts from an unknown number. It's the guy who raped her. He goes into incredibly graphic detail of what he was doing to her right now, including pictures. What he is going to do to me, my family, my dogs. Apparently, through our friend circles, someone gave my ex my new number. Possibly unknowingly. School was out, and gossip didn't travel as far or as quickly. But my ex got the message with the number change. Apparently, she went back to her attacker for some reason, and he decided that I should get dragged into his sick games too. I call the police, give them the texts, call her parents, well, her aunt and uncle, and they get her out. This one is too big for the rumor mill to ignore. Half my high school friends write me off as a monster for not doing more or taking her back. Fast forward to college. I'm there maybe 2 or 3 weeks. I get word from one of my few remaining friends from high school that my ex is still talking about coming to find me and beg her to take her back. I go to the campus police and file a preliminary restraining order. It goes into effect if she ever contacts me, and I notify the police about it. I tell my new friends to keep an eye out for my ex and advise them to deny that they have even heard of me if someone matching her description shows up on campus looking for me. This includes a woman from my major and several of my classes who had been flirting with me pretty strongly. I am notoriously oblivious, so if I pick up on it, That's something. She, understandably, gets a little put off. Her reaction was a mix of, oh, no one is going to mess with the guy I'm interested in, and, but is it worth the hassle? Things kind of died down from there with the stalker ex and the classmate who was interested in me. As for how it got resolved, I honestly don't know if it is. A few years after all this, I got a Facebook message from her throwaway profile talking about death, the unfairness of people dying early, and taking others for granted. I don't know if she was talking about herself or me. Either way, it was all very unsettling. I didn't trigger the restraining order because I didn't want to drag all this past back up over a single message, but I would have if she sent another. But all this kind of puts a damper on any time I think about starting a new relationship. Will she show back up? How will she react to anyone I'm dating? Would they be safe? I half suspect this is all at least part of the reason why I bounce back between demisexual and asexual. But for the most part, I'm satisfied how things are being single. Wow. So, yeah, these stories actually threw me through a loop because, not so fun fact, your boy, Sheriff, had a stalker. She would just text me nonstop, want to hang out at all times of the day, show up at my apartment unannounced, sometimes at wee hours of the morning, and just leave a bunch of random notes on my windshield. Like, I wasn't threatened by her like a lot of these people were, but it was just very creepy and uncomfortable nonetheless. Anyway, first off, I guess I just want to apologize for my long delay. And I have a reason for that. I am going back to school using my GI Bill. And another thing about the sheriff here is that your boy made the honor roll. Only took me 30-some fucking years, but hey, better late than never. And I got more stuff that I'm gonna do. Probably more meme videos, more murdered by words, more am I the asshole. And also I'm gonna do a disturbing song. And even in my absence, I've noticed I've gained more subscribers. And I just want you to know, I appreciate that more than you know. So here's me taking the time to thank you all, and here's me hopefully not doing as long of a delay. Anyways, happy Halloween, stay safe, and more importantly, stay awkward. Bye!